One of the most characteristic features of the system in which we live is that everything can become a commodity, an object that can be bought and sold. And it is not an exaggeration, it is a reality that covers the most essential for survival goods that circumstances would believe sufficiently abstract or deeply human as to escape this machinery. These could include health. Health, thought not without innocence, would have to be something taxable and subject to a price worthy of a dependent, like any other product, market forces and the purchasing power of consumer rate. And yet it is and Big Pharma, the so-called Big Pharma, found on human health the source of profits, a virtually inexhaustible mine also expand on the possibility of operating with unethical practices that deny justice should be its true purpose of existence healing. Contrary to expectations, the pharmaceutical industry is not intended to cure, but to make money. Recently a columnist for the British newspaper The Guardian, Ben Goldacre, gave the publication Bad Pharma, a book detailing some of the most questionable strategies this industry used to sell its products, although they have no positive effect on health. Goldacre notes in particular the fact that there are drugs that are released to the market, even though the previous tests are not objectively support its health benefits possible patients. This is the case of reboxetine, a drug marketed as an antidepressant which fellow doctor discovered that there were positive results only in 1 out of 254 tests, and that was the only chosen for publication in journals, as proof of their effects, that reboxetine was no better than a sugar pill, a placebo. However, despite another dozen studies confirmed that reboxetine was no better or worse than other drugs of its type, this continues to sell and be prescribed. The system permits, says Goldacre, to some extent by the secrecy with which, perhaps intentionally, the negative results in the corresponding studies around. Also we should note that those who are subjects of these studies, who tested for the first time, which are still experimental drugs, usually are unrepresentative of what we might call the statistical average, people in extraordinary situations, that for this reason have access to become guinea pig poorly designed experiments people. Predictably, these tests tend to benefit the manufacturer. When yield results that displease companies have every right to hide them from doctors and patients, to see a distorted picture of the actual effects of any drug. Regulators are especially test data, but only in the early stages of a drug, and even they do not give this information to physicians or patients or other areas of government. This distorted evidence is then communicated and applied in a distorted manner. Goldacre also retrieves an investigation a couple of years ago by academics from Harvard and Toronto, who sought the relationship between positive studies of new drugs, antidepressants, drugs, ulcers and other, and the entity that had funded the studies. Inequality was alarming, because while 85% of studies funded by private industry showed positive results, that it was fulfilled only 50% of those who paid the state. Similarly, with data from 2007 for a series of drugs that lower cholesterol called statin, the researchers concluded that trials funded by the pharmaceutical industry are 20 times more likely to provide positive results for the drug in question. This is because not infrequently tests are deliberately designed to please the sponsor, for example, comparing the new drug with another that is administered in an inadequate dose or a placebo that has no effect, selecting a test subject whose characteristics make the best medicine show your benefits, and other ruses treacherously much or more subtle. To all this the fact that, usually is added. The results of these tests are given in secret to the regulator that will validate a system that Goldacre says is the opposite of science, which is reliable only because all show their work, explain how they know if something is effective, or insurance, share their methods and results, and allow others to decide if they agree on how the data were processed and analyzed. The almost inevitable question is then whether the medicine the doctor prescribes and the patient consumes really is healing, or both are only two puppets in a perverse pharmaceutical puppet theater, where much of what happens is only artifice and deception.